The Victorian mansion stood before me, its weathered brick and elegant turrets exactly as I remembered from my childhood. 23 years of memories lived in those walls, in every creaking floorboard and gleaming windowpane. This was my dream house, the home my grandfather had built, where I'd spent countless hours learning about architecture and restoration at his knee. And tomorrow, my parents were selling it to my sister for $1. I gripped the iron gates, my knuckles white with tension. The setting sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawn, where I'd once helped Grandpa plant his prized roses. Now those same roses would belong to Katherine, my perfect, entitled sister who'd never cared about this house or its history. I thought I'd find you here. I turned to see Mr. Reynolds, our elderly neighbor and my grandfather's best friend, approaching with his signature thermos of coffee. He'd been watching over the property since Grandpa's death 3 months ago. "Hello, Mr. Reynolds," I managed a weak smile. "Just saying goodbye, I guess." He handed me a steaming cup of coffee, his weathered face creased with concern. "It's not right, what they're doing, Victoria. Your grandfather wanted you to have this house. Everyone knows that." I took a sip, letting the bitter warmth flood my chest. Try telling that to my parents. According to them, Katherine needs it more because she's starting a family. Never mind that I'm the one who spent every summer helping Grandpa restore it. Never mind that I became an architect because of this house. Mr. Reynolds shook his head slowly. Thomas would be turning in his grave. He told me what he wrote in his will. The house was supposed to go to you. My grandfather's will, the document that had mysteriously disappeared after his death, replaced by a newer version that left everything to my parents to distribute as they see fit. I hadn't been able to prove it, but I knew Katherine was behind the missing will. She'd always been clever at getting what she wanted. "Did you know," I said quietly, "that Katherine's already planning to gut the place, turn the library into a home theater, tear down the conservatory for a modern extension?" My voice cracked. Grandpa spent 40 years restoring this house to its original glory. Mr. Reynolds placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your sister never understood the value of preservation. She only sees dollar signs and status symbols." He was right. To Katherine, this house was just another trophy to show off to her country club friends. To me, it was everything: my heritage, my inspiration, my future. I had such plans for this place. The third floor would have become my architecture studio, where I could design sustainable restoration projects for other historic homes. The conservatory would have hosted educational workshops for local students interested in preservation. Every detail would have honored Grandpa's legacy while pushing it into the future. But tomorrow, at exactly 9 a.m., my parents would sign over the $2.8 million property to Katherine for less than the price of a cup of coffee. "There's something else you should know," Mr. Reynolds said hesitantly. "I overheard Katherine talking on the phone yesterday. She's planning to flip the house, gut it, modernize it, and sell it to developers. They want to turn it into luxury condos." The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the cobblestone path. "They can't," I whispered. "This house is part of the historical registry. Grandpa made sure of it. Katherine's husband has connections on the city council. They're already working on getting it delisted." I felt sick. This wasn't just about losing my dream home anymore. This was about watching my sister destroy our grandfather's life's work for profit. "I have to go," I said abruptly, turning away from the gates. "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, for everything." "Victoria," he called after me. "Your grandfather always said you were the only one who truly understood the value of building something to last. Don't forget that." I walked to my car, parked under the massive oak tree where Grandpa had built me a swing when I was 6. Katherine had never used it. She'd said it would ruin her clothes. Now she was about to ruin something far more precious. As I drove away, my mind wandered back to the day Grandpa first showed me his restoration plans for the house. I was 10, fascinated by the detailed drawings and the stories behind every architectural feature. "See these bay windows, Vicky," he'd said, his eyes twinkling. "Original 1880s glass. They don't make them like this anymore. Everything in this house has a story, a purpose. That's what makes it special." I'd spent the next 20 years learning those stories, helping him preserve them. While Katherine was at dance recitals and debutante balls, I was stripping paint, restoring woodwork, and falling in love with every inch of this magnificent house. My phone buzzed. A text from Katherine. "Mom says you were lurking outside the house again. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a building." Just a building. To her, maybe. To me, it was the foundation of everything I'd become. Another text followed. Be to go, we're having a small celebration tomorrow after the signing. Don't bother coming. Wouldn't want you to make things awkward with your sulking. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, my hands shaking with anger. Katherine had always been like this, casually cruel, secure in our parents' unconditional support. The golden child who could do no wrong. When she dropped out of college to find herself in Europe, our parents had funded her 2-year adventure. When I'd earned a scholarship to architecture school, they barely acknowledged it. Now they were giving her my grandfather's house, my house, for practically nothing, while I was still paying off student loans from my master's degree in architectural preservation. I pulled into the parking lot of my small apartment building, but I couldn't bring myself to go inside. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the email I'd been avoiding all day. Dear Ms. Victoria Chen, your offer to purchase Summit Mortgage Corporation has been accepted by the board. Please find attached the final documentation for your review. The closing is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Regards, James Wilson, Chief Legal Officer, Summit Mortgage Corporation. I stared at the words until they blurred. 6 years of saving every penny, of building my restoration consulting business into something profitable, of living in a tiny apartment while Katherine enjoyed luxury penthouses, it had all led to this moment. My sister thought she was getting a free house tomorrow. What she didn't know was that Summit Mortgage Corporation held the mortgage on that property, a substantial loan my parents had taken out for recent renovations, a loan that would now belong to me. Katherine had always said I was bad at playing the long game. She was wrong. I'd learned from the best, from her. The only difference was I was playing for something more important than status or money. I was playing for preservation. My phone buzzed again, my parents this time. The signing is at 9 a.m. sharp. Don't make a scene. This is what's best for everyone. Best for everyone. That's what they always said when they favored Katherine, when they funded her failed business ventures while telling me to be practical, when they dismissed my career as a hobby while praising her for marrying into money. Well, tomorrow they would all learn what best for everyone really meant, because at 10:01 a.m., exactly 1 minute after I became the owner of Summit Mortgage Corporation, the house's mortgage would go into immediate default. I pulled up another email, this one from my lawyer, confirming that everything was in place. The mortgage's fine print, the accelerated payment clause, the pre-approved foreclosure notice. It was all ready. My hands shook as I replied, giving the final go-ahead. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. For Grandpa, for his legacy, and for the little girl who'd once sworn to protect this house at all costs. Tomorrow, Katherine would learn that some things are worth more than $1, and my parents would learn that their practical daughter had finally learned to play the game and win. I looked up at the stars, remembering how Grandpa and I used to stargaze through the telescope in his library. I won't let them destroy your dream, I whispered. I promise. The game was set. In less than 12 hours, everything would change. Katherine thought she was getting the house. Instead, she was about to learn a valuable lesson about the true cost of greed. And me? I was about to show them all what happens when you underestimate the power of patience, planning, and preservation. The morning of the signing dawned bright and clear. I sat in my car outside the law office, watching my parents' Mercedes pull up, followed by Katherine's Range Rover. My sister stepped out in designer clothes, her husband Blake close behind, both wearing expressions of smug satisfaction. 8:57 a.m. My phone buzzed with a message from James Wilson. Summit Mortgage closing documents ready. Board assembled for 10 a.m. I took a deep breath and stepped out of my car. Today, I wasn't wearing my usual architect's casual attire. Instead, I'd chosen a sharp charcoal suit that cost 3 months' rent. If I was going to tear down my sister's perfect world, I wanted to look impeccable doing it. Oh, you actually came. Katherine's voice dripped with false sweetness as I approached. I thought you'd be too busy crying over your lost inheritance. I smiled, checking my watch. 8:59 a.m. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Inside the conference room, Mr. Patterson, our family's lawyer for 20 years, had arranged the documents in neat stacks. I noticed his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted his reading glasses. He'd known Grandpa too, had helped draft the original will, the one that had mysteriously vanished. Let's begin, he said, his voice carefully neutral. We're here to execute the transfer of 1847 Heritage Lane from Mr. and Mrs. Chen to Katherine Chen Reynolds for the sum of $1. My mother beamed at Katherine. It's what your grandfather would have wanted, darling. You'll raise your children there, just like we raised you. I bit back a laugh. Grandpa had specifically told me he didn't want Katherine's children destroying his antique furniture and original hardwood floors. These things are meant to last centuries, he'd said, not be ruined by people who don't understand their value. Mr. Patterson began reading the transfer documents. I checked my watch again. 9:15 am. Victoria, my father's stern voice interrupted my thoughts. Stop checking your watch. If you have somewhere more important to be. Oh no, I replied softly. I'm exactly where I need to be. Katherine's husband Blake was already discussing renovation plans with a contractor he'd brought along. The whole east wing needs to go, he was saying. We're thinking an ultra-modern addition, glass and steel. I watched my parents sign their names with flourishing confidence. Katherine practically snatched the pen for her signature, not even bothering to read the documents. 9:45 am. And now, Mr. Patterson said, we just need to address the outstanding mortgage. Oh, that's all handled, Blake interrupted. We've arranged everything with Summit Mortgage. They've been very accommodating. I'm sure they have, I thought, especially since they knew their new owner would be taking over in 15 minutes. Well then, Mr. Patterson gathered the papers. Congratulations, Katherine. The house is yours. Katherine squealed in delight, hugging our parents. I can't wait to start the renovations. The demolition crew is coming tomorrow. By next week, that old dusty library will be. My phone buzzed. 10:00 am. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I have another meeting to attend. But Katherine, you might want to hold off on those demolition plans. She frowned. Why would I do that? Because, I smiled, walking to the door. You should probably read the mortgage terms first, especially the part about accelerated payment clauses and immediate default conditions. The room fell silent. Mr. Patterson's eyes widened as understanding dawned on his face. What is she talking about? My father demanded. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. These might interest you. Transfer of ownership papers for Summit Mortgage Corporation, effective. I checked my watch one final time, exactly 1 minute ago. The color drained from Katherine's face. You bought the mortgage company. Took me 6 years of saving every penny, living in a tiny apartment, building my business from nothing. But yes, I now own the company that holds the mortgage on Grandpa's house. Blake jumped up. This is ridiculous. We have an arrangement with Summit. You had an arrangement with the previous owners. I corrected him. The new management has different policies. For instance, we're quite strict about enforcing the accelerated payment clause in cases of property misuse or historical preservation violations. My father's face turned red. You can't do this. Actually, I can. The mortgage agreement clearly states that any attempts to modify the historical structure without proper approval triggers immediate repayment of the full loan amount. I placed another document on the table. You have 24 hours to pay the remaining $1.8 million or foreclosure proceedings begin. Katherine lunged for the papers, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. Mom, Dad, do something. But our parents looked stunned, finally realizing they'd been outmaneuvered by the daughter they'd always underestimated. How does it feel? I asked Katherine quietly, to have something you thought was yours snatched away. To watch your perfect plans crumble. This is different, she shrieked. This house belongs to me. The signing means nothing if you default on the mortgage, I finished. Which you will, because we both know you can't come up with $1.8 million by tomorrow. Not after you spent all your money on that failed fashion boutique last year. Blake was already on his phone, presumably trying to raise the money. But I knew it was useless. I'd chosen this timing carefully, knowing they just invested everything in a new yacht. Victoria, my mother pleaded, be reasonable. This is your sister's dream home. No, I cut her off. It was my dream home. It was Grandpa's legacy, and Katherine was going to destroy it for profit. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. I should mention that the original will, the one that left the house to me, I asked, the one that mysteriously disappeared after Grandpa died. Don't worry, Mr. Patterson. I have a copy. Katherine's face went pale. You can't prove. That you took it? No, I can't. But I don't need to. Because in exactly. I checked my watch again. 23 hours and 45 minutes. This house will begin foreclosure proceedings. And guess who'll be first in line to buy it at auction? The reality of the situation finally hit them. Katherine collapsed into a chair, her perfect composure shattered. Our parents stood frozen, for once without a solution that would favor their precious firstborn. You've ruined everything, Katherine whispered. No, I replied calmly. I've preserved everything, which is exactly what Grandpa wanted. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Katherine, you might want to cancel that demolition crew. Any damage to the property during the foreclosure period will result in criminal charges. The next 24 hours were chaos. My parents tried every legal maneuver possible, but their lawyers all said the same thing. The mortgage terms were ironclad. Katherine and Blake approached every bank in the city, but their credit was already stretched thin. Exactly one day later, I sat in my new office at Summit Mortgage Corporation, signing the foreclosure papers. Mr. Reynolds had brought me another cup of his coffee to celebrate. Your grandfather would be proud, he said, watching me sign. You protected his legacy just like you promised. 3 months later, I stood in the library of 1847 Heritage Lane, my house now, legally and rightfully. The afternoon sun streamed through those original 1880s bay windows, casting warm light on the antique furniture Grandpa had so carefully collected. My phone buzzed with a text from Katherine. I hope you're happy in your stolen house. I looked around at the preserved woodwork, the carefully maintained fixtures, the library Grandpa and I had spent so many hours in. Soon, this room would host its first preservation workshop for local students. The conservatory would become a community space for architecture lectures. Every inch of this house would continue Grandpa's legacy of education and preservation. It was never about stealing, I texted back. It was about protecting something precious, something you never understood. I walked to the window, looking out at the rose garden where this had all started. The flowers were blooming again, just like Grandpa had taught me they would if you tended them with care and patience. My parents eventually tried to reconcile, claiming they'd learned their lesson. Katherine moved to another city, unable to face the whispers at her country club about how her younger sister had outsmarted her. Blake filed for divorce 6 months later when their finances collapsed. But I had everything I ever wanted, not just the house, but the satisfaction of knowing I protected something important. Something worth more than $1, more than status, more than empty family obligations. Today, 1847 Heritage Lane stands as a testament to preservation, not just of architecture, but of values, of promises kept, of legacies honored. Every year, hundreds of students learn about historical restoration within its walls. The garden hosts community events. The library shelves hold not just Grandpa's books, but new volumes about architecture and preservation. Sometimes late at night, I sit in Grandpa's old leather chair, surrounded by the warmth of well-preserved wood and well-kept promises. In those moments, I can almost hear his voice, "Si, Kiki." Everything in this house has a story, a purpose. And now, thanks to patience, planning, and a little bit of poetic justice, those stories will continue. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't just saving what matters, it's ensuring it thrives for generations to come. The house stands proud against the sunset, its Victorian details lovingly maintained, its history protected. And in the garden, Grandpa's roses bloom season after season, tended by hands that understand the true value of preservation. Some might call it revenge. I call it restoration, not just of a house, but of justice, of legacy, and of a promise made to a grandfather who believed in the power of building things to last. And that's worth far more than $1.